Hello guys and welcome back to Lisa Loves. This is the first true crime case that I've done this year in 2021. I apologise, there has been a little bit of a break. I'm sort of concentrating on some movie videos sometimes, so I hope you will stay with me for that. But today I wanted to talk about a case that hasn't seemed to have got an awful lot of coverage outside of the UK and Ireland, at least not that I have seen. This is one that it was on the televisions a lot in the UK and Ireland, here in Northern Ireland, and one that is completely baffling and puzzling. And that is the case of 15-year-old Nora Quoirin, who unfortunately was found dead after being missing for a period of about 10 days. Before I start the video, just a little bit of a disclaimer, and I do apologise for those of you who are polite and decent in the comments, but just something to put across. My channel is purely based around talking about true crimes and conversation about what people feel, what evidence points to, what perhaps are your thoughts. There is no right and wrong here. It's a case of if there is conflicting evidence, if there is a bit of a puzzle, if people are, there's so many crimes out there where people are of two minds, and there is nothing wrong with people having conflicting opinions and discussing those, and that's purely what I really do on my channel. This is one where all of the coverage that I've read, people have very, very different opinions on this one. I'm never one not to tell you what mine is, so I will as we go through the course of the video. But as has been asked in previous videos, no, I don't sit down and read pages and pages and pages of court transcript. I don't watch hours of videoed inquests. I do read thoroughly about the cases. I do read different people's opinions on the cases, and I put forward my thoughts. It's purely that. So if you have any other information I haven't mentioned, I would love for you to put that in the comments to let other viewers know. But anything where there's finger pointing and name calling will just very simply be removed, and you will be blocked from the channel. So as I say, apologies to those of you who are lovely and nice and just tell us things that we don't know. But now on to the video. So before I talk about what happened in August 2019, I want to first of all talk about Nora Quoirin and what type of person she was, and things that her parents said about her that will maybe build a bit of a picture for you before we get into the story. Nora, as I said, was 15. Her mother was from Belfast, which is about 40 miles away from where I live, so quite close to home. Her father was French. The family did actually live in London, and Nora could speak little bits, obviously, of French. She was sort of bilingual. But in saying that, Nora did have developmental problems. She was born with a condition that meant her brain did not fully mature. So her parents did say that she had difficulty with, she could only write a few words, she could only read a little tiny bit. So when she was born, Nora spent a lot of time in hospital. She had operations to help with breathing, things like that. She has had a lot of specialists throughout her life to help with developmental problems, to help with social issues, just different specialists from different fields that really monitor and help Nora throughout her life. Nora always needed dedicated special educational provision, and she actually attended a school for children and young adults with learning difficulties. Nora also can't make or receive telephone calls independently. Although she can wash and dress herself, she does struggle with buttons. She can't do up buttons, she struggles with washing her hair. She doesn't understand anything conceptual, so there's a lot of areas of development, communication that Nora does struggle with. But on to Nora as a person. Her mother said that she was a very fun and funny girl. She was a delight. She was really affectionate with her family. She could be very shy with those outside of her family though, and she got very anxious easily around people she didn't know, in situations she didn't know. She wasn't a particularly independent child. She did really stick very close to her family, but her family loved her very much. She was very close to them, and she was a ray of sunshine, her mother said. I do apologise, during the video there may be some light that you see in the background there. I am beside a window, the light's sort of changing, it's that time of day, so I do apologise. So other things that her family did say about Nora's abilities was that although Nora liked to walk, she really didn't walk independently. She liked to walk with her family, and she did struggle walking more than a short distance. She usually needed helping, like propping up by her parents. She would sometimes struggle to maintain her balance, and really she didn't really do things independently as such. But that is something that will come into question later when I tell you more of the story. So the story begins on the 3rd of August 2019 when Nora's family arrive in the Dusun resort in Malaysia, which is quite close to the capital Kuala Lumpur. The resort was surrounded by lush green forests. It was very secluded. The forest was very, very thick. It was somewhere that people went really to experience nature. The resort didn't have air conditioning, so it was very hot. They were said to have highs of 90 and lows of 70, so very, very, for me, uncomfortably hot. And remember, Nora and her mother Maeve are half Irish, so, you know, like myself, very fair skinned, not particularly used to the warm heat. So this for that family would have been a very hot, tropical holiday, and they went there just to enjoy the surroundings. They had travelled, they've said, to Asia previously, and they have travelled to many parts of Europe with Nora, and Nora has never, ever, in any situation, ever wandered off by herself at any stage. So the family reached the resort at about 5 p.m. that evening on August the 3rd. And they go for a little bit of a walk around, but not very far because Nora's dad, Sebastian, is very tired. They've been travelling for a long time, and they all retire at 10 p.m. that evening. During their walk, they did find some local deer that Nora was very taken by and that she told her mum she very much liked. But the family did really pretty much want an early evening to get up, raring to go the next day, so they were home and in bed for 10 p.m. So the very next morning, Sebastian, Nora's dad, goes to her room at 8 a.m. to check on her. She shared this room with her two younger siblings, 12 and 6, and they were sleeping in an upstairs room. The parents were sleeping downstairs, and when Sebastian went into the room, he, to his horror, found that she was missing. Now, it transpired that Nora's younger sister had actually got up in the early hours of the night for a drink of water and had noticed at this stage that Nora was missing, but had made the assumption that she had just simply gone down to sleep with her parents. So she had just gone back to bed and not thought any more of it. So immediately a search commences. There are 120 people involved initially in the search. They're searching a very, very dense jungle around the area where Nora was seen. Now, it's very much believed by authorities that Nora has woken up, she's climbed out of a window and she's went for a walk on her own and she's got lost. This is something that is very, very much disputed by the family and always has been. There are just a multitude of reasons. Nora doesn't ever go anywhere by herself. She gets very scared and anxious. She has limited motor skills, so climbing out of a window and walking on uneven terrain in pitch blackness. Now, the resort they stayed in didn't have any really street lights. The reason for that is that people that stay there very much want to see the stars, so you can understand in this sort of secluded area what people are going there for. They don't want the light pollution, they don't want to have to deal with that. But this girl, 15-year-old, anxious, developmental needs, learning difficulties, has left her resort on her own for the first time in her life, in the dark, in her underwear, because Nora sleeps in her underwear. So this teenage girl, remember, she may have had learning difficulties, but she's a teenage girl, and I know for one, teenage girls are very self-conscious about themselves and their bodies. For her to wander outside in her underwear herself, to me, you can sort of see the side on this case I come down on. I know a lot of people are very much investigate the parents, but stick with me, we'll get through why I feel the way I do. So Nora's parents are constantly telling the authorities and the police she must have been abducted, someone must have taken her. She wouldn't leave by herself, she wouldn't leave in her underwear, they say that's what she slept in. She wouldn't have been able to walk down the area, climb out the window, she would have been scared. It's just completely out of any character that Nora had ever shown. So on day one, we very much have the authorities being of the opinion that this is a missing persons case because Nora has wandered off and got lost, and the family very much coming down on the side of someone has taken our daughter, she has not wandered off herself. The very next day, on August 5th, the police chief actually does officially reiterate that they do not feel there has been any foul play, that it's a missing persons case, and that they do not feel that anyone else is involved in the matter. The search is extensive, more and more people are brought in, locals help, other holidaymakers staying at the resorts help. Obviously the family are doing everything they can also. Everyone really that can help at this stage is helping. Searches are actually going into the night. We see footage on television. I remember watching of the Malaysian police officers walking through the jungle with loudhailers with megaphones, calling out Nora's name, looking for her. At a later date they do actually add a recording from her mother, which it has always been stated that Nora has a very, very close bond with her mother. She's very, very close to her. It's a bond that she doesn't have with anyone else as closely as she does with her mother. So Nora's mother records, she's just calling her name and saying, "Darling, I'm here." In a hope that if Nora was to hear a voice she recognises, that she may try and make her way toward it, she may shout out. And unfortunately that was to be of no avail. The following day, August the 6th, Nora's family actually come forward and make a public statement. I'm just going to read it to you. I don't want to obviously misquote. "We are especially worried because Nora has learning and developmental disabilities and is not like other 15-year-olds. She looks younger, she's not capable of taking care of herself, she won't understand what's going on, she never goes anywhere by herself. We have no reason to believe she wandered off and is lost." So the search continues, and on August 7th, the next day, police actually say that they have lifted fingerprints. Now, later in the inquest it is said that these fingerprints were actually lifted on the 4th, which is the day the family realised that Nora was missing. But it's announced on the 7th that the police have found 8 fingerprints on the window. Now, there was confusion about this window as it's a downstairs window and Nora was sleeping upstairs. Now, this window wasn't the bedroom window as previously stated, it was a hallway window downstairs. It had a broken latch on it, and it was found that this window could be opened from the outside. This is something that was brought up by the family. This is something also that the resort owner does admit. They do say the latch was broken, they do admit it could be opened from the outside. And these fingerprints, there were 8 of them. 4 of those prints were not adequate to be used because they were the wrong part of maybe the hand, the finger, they couldn't print from them. 1 of the prints was found to be Nora's mum, Maeve, but the other 3 prints have never ever been able to be identified. They tested these against the resort staff, obviously the family, workers that have been there, previous staff that worked there, and people that worked in resorts that are close by, and they never turned up a match for these 3 prints. Now, you will say, could they have been Nora's prints? Now, Nora's prints were actually taken when she was found, but the condition of Nora's body, her fingers were actually shriveled, and it was very difficult to maintain prints from her. Now, it has been stated that fingerprints of hers were on file from when she actually obviously got her passport, but the fingerprints that they have on file for Nora also do not match the prints on the window, but they don't have all her prints, so it is still a possibility that they may be Nora's, but to this day these prints have been unidentified. So in the following days, more searches happen. There are hundreds of people involved in the searches, helicopters. There are even policemen from Ireland, from France that come in to help. A canine unit is brought in. Now, Nora's parents do comment that they feel that the dog that was brought in was very old and didn't feel that it could do a good enough job. This has been criticised by authorities, but it's an opinion they have. They just feel the dog was not up to the job. The dog was taken into the forest where footprints were found, and it was questioned if they possibly belonged to Nora, but this showed up nothing. The dog didn't react to these at all. So we now move on to August 10th. It's 6 days that Nora has been missing, and her family again give another public statement, but this time to actually thank all of the people that have been involved in the search for their daughter. Again, I will read from the statement so as not to get anything wrong. "To be with us here, it means the world to us. We are so grateful for everything that you are doing for us. Everyone who is helping here and not from here. We are extremely impressed by the effort, your expertise, your dedication, and we hope you find Nora. Thank you so much." Now, the police also look into anyone in the area with a criminal conviction for anything or who has been involved in criminal activity. They not only interview the resort staff where the family have been staying, but they interview staff from the resorts close to there. I think there were 3 other resorts, and the police interview everyone. So the next real thing of note is on August 12th, when Nora's mother Maeve makes an appeal to the press to go out. Obviously, to anyone that may see it that may be able to help, she wants to appeal to them directly, and she says, "Nora is our first child. She has been vulnerable since the day she was born. She is so precious to us and our hearts are breaking. We are appealing to anyone who has any information about Nora to help us find her." So at this stage, English, French and Irish police are helping with the investigation, and a reward of £10,000 was put forward by an anonymous Belfast business for any information related to Nora's disappearance. At this stage, the original search radius is actually extended to 6 square kilometres. And on August 13th, almost 10 days after Nora disappeared, the thing that none of us wanted to see happen happened. A body is found, which is very likely to be of Nora. Investigations obviously into that are undertaken. The family are brought to the morgue at the local hospital and they are able to identify Nora. The family then come forward and confirm that indeed the body that was found was that of their daughter Nora. The following day, on August 14th, the family come forward and make a final statement. They say, "She is the truest, most precious girl and we love her infinitely. The cruelty of her being taken away is unbearable. Our hearts are broken." And the very thought of what those parents are going through is just unimaginable to me. Obviously at this stage, the next thing to happen is a post-mortem is to take place. Now this is when things start to get questionable, and of all the information from this point on, I struggle with Nora just having got up and left on her own. We do have to take her parents' word for the fact as to how she was with people. Obviously given the fact that she medically does have this condition and she does medically have disabilities and developmental problems, none of that is something that we need to believe her parents. They are the case. But how she is with strangers, how she is with independence is something obviously we need to believe the family. But certain things, certain black and white issues are not something we need to trust what the family are telling us, and they're what I'm going to go on to next. Nora's body was found about 2.5 kilometres from the Doosan resort, and it was found beside a stream. She was unclothed. She had only been wearing her underwear, but this underwear was not on her person, it was missing. She had no evidence of any sexual assault, and she had no evident large or serious injuries. She had a few scratches, a few bruises, but nothing that would suggest a struggle, nothing that would suggest being assaulted in any way. It was found that Nora died from intestinal bleeding due to starvation and stress, and it is thought that she was alive for up to 3 to 4 days before they actually found her. So she had been in that jungle in her underwear for possibly 5 days. Now, Irish and French police were also actually present at the post-mortem, and they say that they were happy with the findings of the post-mortem. Now, other things have been raised, and these are things that I want to discuss. Nora was half Irish. Nora had very fair skin. She was wandering around for 5 to 6 days in 90-degree temperature in her underwear, and she had no sunburn. So the soles of Nora's feet were not found to have any serious abrasions or cuts on them, and experienced hikers had said that the terrain is treacherous in places and there is no way that she could have been wandering about for several days and have no injuries whatsoever on her feet of any note. Also, her body had nothing apart from a few scratches. Again, something experienced hikers said just wouldn't be the case because they even found it difficult. And the area she was found was very, very difficult to get to. There was no marked trail to get there. And also, the area where she was found had previously been searched and she had not been found. Now, it has been said that the reason for that is because she was still mobile at this time and she was perhaps not there at that time. But if surely she was in the vicinity and had mobility issues, she would not have gone far. She would have heard people calling her mother's voice. But it is very questionable. This girl has no serious mosquito bites. She has no sunburn. She has no serious injuries. She has no cuts other than a few little scratches. And she has wandered around for 5 to 6 days in 90-degree temperatures in her underwear. That to me does not add up. It doesn't matter what side of things you try to look at this from, that does not add up. To me, it very much points towards her having been kept somewhere and being dumped at a later date. The sheer attention that this case promoted in the press, the amount of people involved, people coming from abroad to help, maybe whoever took her panicked and released her. They put her in the jungle in the hope that someone would think that she had just wandered off. But she certainly was not in that environment for 5 to 6 days in her underwear. Also, her underwear was not on her when she was found. Now, I have seen people suggest that perhaps her underwear was soiled, so she removed it. You don't soil a bra, you may soil underwear, Again, she's a teenage girl. Is it likely she's going to be wandering about completely nude by her own choice? And I do feel that there was a stream. Surely she could have washed her underwear if it was soiled. I find it very hard to believe that a young teenage girl is going to, by choice, wander about completely nude. And they say she wore underwear, so I would assume by that they mean a bra and pants. She was found with nothing. You don't soil your bra when you go to the toilet, so that to me kind of discounts having soiled herself. Another suggestion put forward was something called paradoxical undressing. Now this is something by which when hypothermia hits in, your body feels like your skin is burning and you start to strip off and remove clothes because you think you're too hot. Again, this has been disputed by experts because they say with the temperatures there's absolutely no way that she would have had anything approaching hypothermia. So Nora's parents are obviously devastated. They're still very much sticking to she was taken, she was kidnapped. They said there's no way she could possibly have gotten to the point that she was found without help from someone else. And this is pretty much backed up by experienced hikers that found her that said this is a very, very remote area with no marked trail. Certainly it would be very unlikely that anyone could get there, never mind get there with absolutely no marks on their body. So the parents actually push for an inquest, which is granted. Now the inquest doesn't actually start until the 24th of August 2020, so we're talking almost a year later. Unfortunately, Maeve and Sebastian, Nora's parents, couldn't be there because of the COVID pandemic, so they had to do what a lot of people have had to do during the pandemic. Everything's on Zoom. They had to watch through a live link rather than be there through the actual proceedings. So the inquest actually involved 64 witnesses, which included police, a British doctor who actually performed a second autopsy, the experienced hikers who found the body, and obviously various hotel staff. Nora's parents also sued the actual hotel for lack of security with the broken latch on the window, which the hotel resort owner did have to actually admit that it was broken and it could be opened from the outside, so the building itself wasn't secure. So there was a lot of disputing the fact that Nora was abducted or kidnapped. I'm just going to again quote, so forgive me for looking to the side. Senior police official Mohammed Mat Yusuf said, "We did not receive any telephone calls. Usually in this kind of case, we'll get a call to say that the victim has been kidnapped and is in the hands of certain people, and they will demand a ransom. I believe the missing person actually climbed out of the window." So that's coming from a senior official at the inquest. They're saying, surely if someone took her, they would have demanded ransom at this stage. It has to also be noted that the resort, in the 11 years that it's been opened, has never reported any criminal activity of any description, not even petty theft. The thing is, it's being put across by a lot of people is it's not an area with high crime, it's not an area where this sort of thing will happen, but how many times do you watch the news and you hear people in little villages saying, "Nothing like that ever happens here, I'm really shocked." We hear it all the time. Okay, so another quote for you, and I apologise for any butchering of names I'm doing here. In the inquest, a witness statement from the actual resort owner, Hanam Ahmed Bamadaj, I apologise. "The latch of the window the teen is believed to have climbed out of is broken and there was no CCTV at the site." So obviously security issues. She also said that she lived opposite the resort that the family were staying in her cottage, and she has a dog. She said that night was very quiet and peaceful, she didn't hear any noise, and her dog would always bark at strangers, and the dog didn't bark that night. Now, for me, she was putting this forward as there wasn't an intruder, someone hasn't taken Nora because her dog didn't bark. But surely a teen who arrived the previous day and had only been there for a couple of hours, surely that's also a stranger, and would the dog not bark if Nora herself climbed out of a window and went wandering up the street in the middle of the night? So her reasoning for the dog not barking to me doesn't really make much sense. If the dog's going to bark, the dog's going to bark regardless of who's coming out of that building. Another point raised is to get to where Nora was, to get to the area of the forest, she would have needed to have gone past fencing that was around the outside of the resort. Now this was picket fencing and it was actually broken in places. The gate was locked, but the picket fencing was broken, so she would have been able to get through the broken area, but crucially not without damaging her feet, because it was rather treacherous, it was dangerous, it's not something you want to be wandering through in your bare feet. And again, remember, There's no lighting, it's pitch black, she's in an area she doesn't know, her mobility is not the best. Again, is it quite possible that she was carried? It was also brought up at the inquest that Nora's parents feel that she was kept in one of 3 houses close to their resort and possibly then nearer the time released. But the police officials said that they searched extensively those 3 properties and nothing was found. Now, a crucial point that a lot of people started pointing fingers at the family. Now, it has been said that the family shouldn't really be choosing somewhere like that, sort of like somewhere near to a dense forest, somewhere that the security is not fantastic at. It's a weird place to bring someone with special needs. They holidayed extensively in a lot of places. Nora stuck to her family like glue. She'd never wandered off. They would have no reason to feel she would do so. They weren't to know that a latch on a window was going to be broken when they got there. They weren't to know that the fence was to be broken when they got there. They weren't to know about security lighting outside. Yes, they would probably could have looked into the fact that there was no CCTV, and people have said, well, that's convenient. They picked somewhere that was secluded with no CCTV and no lighting. If you wanted to get rid of a child, it would be very easy to do. I personally don't feel that that's the case. This family are pushing this too much, too hard. A lot of comparisons have been made to the Madeleine McCann case, which of course everyone thinks that Madeleine's parents are guilty. I sway on that quite a bit. I do feel, just let's put in quickly if you're interested, I do feel that if the parents are guilty, I do feel that perhaps it was accidental and they covered it. But if I'm looking really deep inside myself, there are suspicions about Jerry and Kate, but I honestly don't believe that they killed their daughter. I do believe there was another party involved. People may switch off now, oh well, she's stupid. But that's just my thoughts and beliefs. I do feel that they were very neglectful. I don't think there was any excuse for those parents to leave those kids on their own. They shouldn't have went on a holiday with their kids and basically just been there acting like they were there for themselves. They were very, very neglectful, but they paid the highest price for that neglect. Anyway, we get back to the case we're talking about. So a lot of people have felt wealthy parents, daughter with educational issues and needs, maybe they just wanted to get rid of her. Again, comparison is very unusual. She also had the 2 siblings, they were also in the same room. But this is why this story is very, up and down. People are coming down very firmly on either side. I very firmly come down on the side of the parents. I do feel there are way too many problems. But the next point is one that a lot of people sway towards thinking the family involvement. Now, Nora's parents did state that Nora couldn't walk very well unaided or independently. She couldn't walk more than 20 feet on her own without stumbling or falling. She was unsteady. Now, in the course of needing to look at CCTV footage, there was a report of Nora and her siblings being approached at KLIA airport on their arrival. They arrived with their dad. Their mum actually flew in separately from Singapore. She was at a business meeting. And the father was seen on CCTV to walk about 30 steps away from the kids who were standing alone. He met his wife, they kissed, they walked straight back to the kids again. The kids were alone for a matter of maybe a couple of minutes, and in this time a man approached them. The kid said that he said hello and he asked where they were from. The kids completely ignored him because they were taught that they didn't speak to strangers, and on this ignoration he left. He just walked away. But while looking at the CCTV footage, what was discovered is that Nora is seen walking completely normally like any other 15-year-old girl, pulling her baggage out, carrying with the bags, and there didn't seem to be any issues whatsoever with her walking. And this is something that people have seriously questioned. Why did the family lie? Now, is potential the family didn't lie. Maybe Nora didn't struggle all the time, maybe sometimes she struggled more than others. Now, I suffer from fibromyalgia and ME, and my mobility on different days is very different according to pain levels, according to headaches, brain fog, lots of different factors. But I'm thinking in this situation that my child disappears and that all of the authorities are thinking that she's just wandered off on her own. I am going to do absolutely anything to get those people to take me seriously if I feel that my child has been abducted, if I know in my gut someone has taken my kid, and I know that my kid is not going to walk off, and I know my kid that well, I'm maybe going to exaggerate something like that in order for the police to actually take me seriously. Because it did seem at first for the entire case that really the family's worries and fears and concerns weren't taken as seriously as they should be. It was immediately assumed that she'd just wandered off on her own, and nothing that the mother said would make them think otherwise. So maybe the mother said, well, she couldn't have because she struggled with this, she struggled with that, and maybe she did exaggerate. And people are questioning, well, why would they lie? Because they wanted the police to do anything to find Nora, and she maybe did something she shouldn't have done. She maybe bent the truth a little bit and exaggerated. But that does not mean that she's responsible for murdering her kid or all of the other weird and wonderful things I've seen on the internet. So following this CCTV footage, the search was actually widened to 20 square kilometres rather than the 4 to 6 that they had been searching previously. Something odd that was also found is that a family friend received a WhatsApp message saying that the family had been followed from the airport and that Nora was still alive. Now this was investigated and there doesn't seem to be anything more reported about this, what was found, who was it sent to. It stated that a WhatsApp message was sent to a family friend and it said this. Nothing else is raised about this whatsoever. They did say that they were followed from the airport, so the police did check the footage to see if they were indeed, anyone was like scouting around them at the airport, and this is when they saw that man approach them, so they were able to verify that. But I really don't know, no more information about that WhatsApp message seems to exist. Please let me know in the comments if you know anything more about that. Also during the inquest, something interesting that was found. Inspector Nora Adel said that 2 emails were actually sent to the family demanding Bitcoin in return for Nora. They demanded 2 Bitcoin, which is the equivalent of about 20,000 UK pounds. They said that they gave them until 8 PM Moscow time, but the police immediately assumed this was a scam. They said it had all the markers of being a scam. They didn't take it seriously. They didn't think it was like a hostage situation, so they completely discounted it. But an officer was actually asked to try to trace that, and what they actually did do is that they deposited a small amount of money in this account and it bounced around several different accounts in different places before ending up in all places Virginia. Again, we just seem to go cold after that. Nothing has been found, no further information is available, but it has been said by the police that they are confident that that was simply a scam. So let's talk about some more evidence that was brought up at the inquest. There's always been a question as to why there was no foreign DNA found on Nora's body. Now firstly, she was found next to a stream, so we've got water. The temperatures are very, very high, the humidity is very high, and it has been independently said by various experts that its DNA just degrades so quickly in that environment. Basically, it's the perfect environment for the degrading of any DNA evidence. So the chances of anything being actually found on Nora was minimal, and they haven't found any foreign DNA evidence. But 2 cigarette butts were found very close to where Nora's body was found at a little abandoned hut, and they were found to have the DNA of 2 unidentified men on there. They have yet to identify these individuals. No one knows who they are. They may not be linked in any way to this case, but it is a very secluded, specific area with no direct hiking trail, and 2 people, 2 men have been there close to where Nora's body was discovered. Something else that happened was they did bring in further sniffer dogs. Given the first comments about the first dog being very old, maybe not being particularly up to the job, the sniffer dogs did not detect any signs of Nora around the window area or outside of the resort. But weirdly, they picked up her scent on the other side of that picket fence that we talked about earlier. To me, that first indication that I got there is there a potential that she was carried to that area? They also did pick up her scent at a local abandoned fishing hut in the middle of the jungle. As I say, nothing around the actual resort itself. And this is very in line with what was found by the first dog. There was nothing particular found around the resort, but in the actual jungle and on the other side of that fence they did pick up a scent. The fence was about 100 metres from the villa, and then the little pond area was about a mile from there. So a local experienced hiker by the name of Chong Yo Fat is actually the person that found Nora's body. And I just thought I'd bring it up as it is very unusual how they knew where to look. They did actually approach a monk, and it must have been someone that sort of sees things, maybe similar to a psychic. I'm not sure. It just said that they approached a monk, and he said to search for Nora in areas around water, in areas around streams. And this is why they arced back to an area which had actually previously been searched. It was near a stream. They had come past it recently, and they doubled back to check again, and this is when Nora's body was found. There was no phone signal in the area, so someone had to go to an area where they could get signal, and they waited about 2 hours for for help to actually reach them. They didn't touch the body at all. So obviously it's showing you, we have all these people in the forest looking, we have experts, we have helicopters, we have sniffer dogs, and it's taken those people in proper equipment and boots 2 hours to reach that area, but this young 15-year-old naked girl with bare feet has managed to reach this area unaided, no clothes, with no specific markings on her body. To me, that raises more questions than her parents exaggerating how far she could walk unaided. So in the interest of being completely fair, obviously some evidence that also was reported during the inquest that has contrary connotations to what I've already discussed. They did actually a luminol test at the area inside the actual resort area. Obviously luminol detects the presence of blood, and they detected blood in the washroom area, a few droplets, so nothing serious. You know, it's never been said whose blood that is. You know, a few droplets could be someone cut themselves shaving, it could be a woman at the wrong time of the month, it could be someone with a nosebleed, it could be anything, but obviously in the interest of full disclosure, they did find droplets of blood in the washroom at that resort. Also other points, and this is where the parents don't make themselves look the best, but the mother and father both say that they heard something in the early hours of that morning when they say they feel Nora was taken, or when Nora left the resort area. The mother heard muffled sounds, like possibly whispering, but she said she was half conscious, she was half asleep. She didn't really know if she was hearing it, she was dreaming what was going on, so she just went back to sleep. And I think we can all admit that we've done that you're half asleep and you hear something, you're like, what was that? And you listen and you don't hear anything else and you go back to sleep. Well, the mother did say that she did hear muffled noises, potentially whispering, and the father said that he heard, again, muffled noises, but he said he felt that there was possibly a party going on at a nearby resort, and he heard noise from there, and he also heard muffled noises which he felt could have been around their actual resort building, their cottage. They did make the police aware of this right away, but they said the police were more interested in interviewing hotel staff, and they feel that any criminal evidence that could have potentially been there, that could have been in those other resorts, that could have been nearby, would have been missed by the time that the police got to them several days later. So they feel that the police really concentrated their attention in the wrong place, and anything that could have been discovered was potentially long gone by the time the police got there. So the inquest concluded, and I did not watch the entire inquest, so if there are points I missed, please feel free to let me know below in the comments. But it was found death by misadventure, that she had simply wandered out and got lost and died due to the elements, due to exposure. Now obviously Nora's parents, Maeve and Sebastian, are not happy with this at all. They're very unhappy with this, and they are to file a legal bid to overturn the coroner's decision because they feel it obviously that justice has not been achieved for their daughter Nora. And that concludes the story of Nora Quoirin, her disappearance and unfortunate death. I don't know what your thoughts are. As I say, I have read many different thoughts on this. People coming down on both sides. I personally do not feel the parents are involved. I feel that Nora was abducted, and I feel she was kept somewhere, not in the jungle, which would account for no sunburn, no heavy biting, no heavy wounds of any description. And with the incredible amount of press attention and the incredible search efforts that were launched, I feel that then Nora was dumped at some stage, and she did indeed die of what was said she died from. She probably didn't eat all that time. She was stressed and anxious and scared, and that's what the bleeding in her intestines were said to be from. So that all still can be the case. The findings of that autopsy are sound, but just how we got to the position for Nora to be where she was is the question. I'd be interested to hear your views below. Obviously keep them polite. We can have different opinions without referring to each other as being stupid or anybody with a brain can see, blah blah blah. Please be polite, please be respectful, and let me know your thoughts. Feel free to give any further information that you have that I haven't covered here, and I look forward to speaking to you guys next time. Over and out from Lisa Lives.